All right, Adam, thanks for sitting here with us today. While we are here, I want to get your perspective on the current market and what's currently happening, where your current perspective is of everything. So what advice do you have to our top real estate agents and teams right now during these times?
Yeah, right now being, April 2nd, if you're experiencing economic hardship right now, it most likely has nothing to do with the virus. Has nothing to do with the coronavirus. We are on a 30, 60, 90-day sales cycle. And for most of us, this has been less than 30 days of actual impact on it. So I just hear people walking around using that as an excuse as to why they're not in having good months right now. That's just because you didn't do something in the first quarter, which is fine. Understand that, but don't use that as an excuse right now. It's also important because it plays into forecasting what I believe is going to happen. 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago when people started shutting down, if a restaurant got shut down that night, they lose income, right? There's no longer income coming in that night because they're not selling anything. So therefore they go to zero. When we start shutting down or getting slower, we still have closings in the books. We have a longer sales cycle. So that's fast forward into this. So people may be feeling the time effects or the new pendings effects, but they shouldn't be feeling the actual economic effect yet. What's going to happen though is in about 2 or 3 weeks, mid to late April, people are really going to start feeling the economic impacts. They're going to start to feel it. And that's when people are going to start to freak out to a certain extent. Fear is going to take over them, or they're going to look for doomsday scenarios because it's going to be getting worse. And then in May or June, depending on where we're at and how long this transpires, we don't know for certain. Whenever the kind of earth kind of starts turning again, or like I've been using the analogy when like a bear comes out of hibernation, people are going to go, wow, that was crazy. And the rest of the world is going to turn on. Restaurants will open, massage therapies will open, hair salons will open, dentist office will revisit. All these places have been shut down gyms, they're all going to open up. And instantly everyone's going to start making money again. But guess what? We're not. So understand that for real estate, when the rest of the world is celebrating being back on, you're 30 to 90 days away from being back on. So I like to bring things back to a number. And the reason why I'm saying this is so people can prepare themselves. Because if they haven't mentally shifted yet, your actions can't follow. So you have to mentally shift into the reality that you're playing into. And what I'm hearing people is, they're like, yes, I understand this new reality of where we're going, but the reality is you actually haven't accepted it because you're still telling me why you dislike it. And that means you're just fighting with reality. It's irrelevant whether you like it or not like it, right? It's because the minute you have that preference is preventing you from actually taking larger action steps right now. So when you're thinking about this, April is most likely probably going to be about 25% off top line. Still should be pretty healthy for most people. But there'll be a seller or two that pulls out, a buyer that pulls out. Somebody won't be able to get a mortgage closed because of this. A bank will push out. There's just going to be about 25% off top line. May and June, I would expect 50 to 75% off your top lines in May and June. Now, there's going to be some areas that maybe hit it harder, some areas that may not hit quite as hard, depending on your particular area. Like Vermont, for instance, we're completely shut down. We're non-essential. If that happens for 30 or 40 days, that 30 or 40 days is going to show up, right? So it depends on where it could be down to 0%. I know Keller Williams was targeting like how to operate on 25% or less of the revenue. So again, they're doing the same thing that we're doing, projecting that out in May and June. July should be 25 to 50% off. August, you're going to probably be able to start to breathe again because you're closing. And then September, it's going to be hunting season for the rest of the year. I do think though, the difference between 2006, 7, and 8, and 9 was that real estate was the cause of the recession. This time, it's not the cause of the recession. And so real estate will bounce back as soon as everything else opens back up, and will basically probably have one of, if not the best third and fourth quarter that we've ever had in history, just because we're probably going to have one of the worst second and third, beginning parts of third quarters. Yeah. It's just going to condense it all down.
It's going to condense it all down. Okay. All right. What do you see on the impact of like home prices, things like that? I agree. It wasn't caused by real estate. So I think it's going to come back really, really quickly. My opinion is I just think home sale prices is just going to kind of like, if not start balancing back out a little bit, maybe not see the same growth that we have.
I think one thing you will feel, all businesses will, is that we're operating at such a low unemployment rate, 1 to 2.5%, depending on where you are. I do think that number, people are talking like it's going to hit 20, 30%. I think it's skewed because it may hit that number, but the minute restaurants turn back on, that number alone from restaurants alone is going to go back down to like 7% because they're just furloughing a lot of people, right? So once you see it kind of turn back on, I think that unemployment rate will probably drop back down to that 3 to 5% range, not the where it was, which will cause a few people to not be able to buy homes, and it may just cause a little bit more inventory. But that's not a bad thing, because we can't go of having inventory that for 30 days. That's just not a healthy market to be in. So I think what will end up happening is it'll be very strong for real estate in general. May not be as strong as we saw leading into this, because there's going to be some lingering effects over the remaining part of the year that'll just keep it down a little bit, just because it's going to. People are also going to have a little bit more fear around it. People are going to they're going to want to save a little bit more. They're going to, just natural things are going to cause it to contract a little bit, but that's a healthy contraction. People need to understand that. And as that maybe goes from 30 days inventory to 3 or 4 months, which fine, that's, people still need to realize that the average equilibrium in the marketplace, as we all know, is 6 months, right, of supply on there. So if we're at 3 or 4 months, it's still a very healthy market. And I think we'll probably start trending towards that. And then very, very slowly we'll climb out of this. We'll start seeing gains over the next 18 to 24 months. But yeah, you're right. House prices are predominantly in most areas going to remain very similar to where they're at now.
All right. And then my final question is what is the gift that you're looking for that you see in this shift in and around real estate?
Well, I think the gift from the personal side and the business side, the personal side is that this is forcing a lot of people to stop and think about their intangible assets that they want to have in their life. Well, at least this is the message I'm trying to get out to people. And if you don't know what an intangible asset is, just kind of like your values, what do I want my values to be for my family? What do I want them to be for me? What do I want them to be for our relationship with my partner, my relationship with my business? And what a better time to just have some inner stillness and really think about, what do I want from my life? Not, most people go through their life ingesting other people's answers because they're safe, instead of asking very deep questions, which might uproot their entire life, but yet they're the answers that they're craving for. It's that yearning for authenticity that people want in their lives. And so from a personal side of things, I think it's a great time to sit down, which most people probably haven't in their family, and saying, hey, what do we want our values to be? What habits do we want to have? Do we want to, have that we're home at 6 o'clock eating every day, and we've created that habit now for the last 3 weeks being home, that we're going to continue on with that. We're going to then have a gratitude every time that's there. So the benefit is just, what do I want for my life? And we have a bunch of tools on our website that people can use, that are free resources that people can use to help gain them or orient them to that. But do the work while you're here, and do some inner work. I mean, inner work doesn't mean you just need to go sit in a cave. And the inner work just means, I've been so distracted from business in my life that I'm going to pause for a second during this time and think about some really important things, even if it's not safe, meaning even if it's going to cause some disruption in my life. That's the point, is to cause some disruption from what you're doing normally to face what it is that you're looking for. That's going to be really, really important from the business side, from the personal side. From the business side, it's going to do a couple of things. If you went through and started cutting a bunch of expenses, I think it's going to make a lot of organizations much leaner than they need to be, than they should be. They don't need to probably have all the things they were spending. So I think it's going to force people to go through there and cut a bunch of expenses and stay in that. Hopefully you stay in that mode after you pull back out of this. What I'm afraid of is people have gotten this mode, and then 30 days into them having good months again, they go back to thinking the same way around expenses that they have been. You should take that lesson into it of going, okay, I realized I was able to operate on a hell of a lot less of a budget. Maybe we only go and add 50% of our budget back in, and we're going to hold tight for the remainder of the year. Let's just see how we operate that way. So I think from the business side, that can be a valuable asset to maintaining high profit margins, is literally by keeping your expenses low, learning to do more with less, and then realizing that less is actually better for most people because it doesn't distract them. And so it keeps them focused, and you and your team focused for longer periods of generating income.
Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you again. I thoroughly enjoyed this call. Biggest takeaway for me personally is you got to work on you. You got to work on me. You got to, even if it's uncomfortable and even if it's not safe. I love that. I love that. Dig deep with yourself. Don't go in a cave and hibernate, but really get in tune with yourself and work on yourself and what you want your future self to look like. So, Adam, thank you again. I can't thank you enough. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.